Wow, that worked. We seem to be live again. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So great to see you all in the chat already. Having a wonderful time. Hello from me in Warwickshire, and it's...
Hello from me down in the sunny south of France. Well, it's not sunny now, obviously. It's been a lovely day.
Yeah. As ever, thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. Sorry there wasn't a watch party, in sequence last Thursday, but those of you who know will know that the first Thursday in every month is reserved for our special live for our Patreon followers, many of whom we can see in the chat already. I won't say hello to every single one of you because we know how long that takes. However,
we're saying hello to you.
However, if you are new and you've never been here before, or you're not yet a Patreon follower, let us be. I think you'll probably be the first. This is the first time we've let it out in public, and it's appropriate, seeing as we're coming up to part 3 of Standing with Stones. That in the last week or so, we've decided, due to popular demand, that in the fullness of time we shall be making Standing with Stones 2.
Well, you don't need to say the fullness of time, do you? We've started work on it already, and so you won't see it other than in the fullness of time. But it's a happening thing.
Yeah. It is. I mean, there's a long road to go, and it gives redoubled purpose to us having a Patreon campaign page. Because if you want to support us in making the sequel to this, what is now nearly 15-year-old film, my goodness gracious me, who would have thought it had legs now? But we've still got lots to say about the people that put up these edifices in Britain and elsewhere. So, if you'd like to help us make the sequel, make this fresh new film, please go over to Patreon. You'll find the link below on the recording. I'll put it up in the link up in the corner above Mr. Soskin over there. But there's a link down below if you want to check out our Patreon page and help us in the next stages. Enough said about that, unless you want to say something else about that, Rupert.
No, I have no more words to say about that other than it's happening. It's happening. Look, I've worn down half a pencil already.
Oh, we're good to go then. And thanks to everybody that has stuck with us and twisted our arms up our backs so that we can resist no longer. It all seems like a good idea. Cheers, I will say. Okay?
Indeed. Yes, cheers. Cheers.
Right. That's out of the way. Goodness knows how I've got so much energy tonight because it's been a day, hasn't it, Rupert? We've been busy.
It has been a day.
Doing
day. Not a bad day, but a long day.
Excellent. Yeah, doing an interview with Harry Robson, who is an archaeologist that specialises in the examination of lipids and amino acids, long chain and short chain varieties, I'm sure, stuck on the inside of Neolithic pots. And the stories it can tell from that. Yeah. So I suppose you're all waiting to see for us to get going into the third part of Standing with Stones. And tonight we are going to Wales. Now, there's I don't know how long this is going to...
Madness. Thank you, Cork.
Oh, no, I'm missing all the comments. I've been so busy yattering. Anyway, keep your comments coming. If something comes up during the show, of course, I'm sure we'll do our best to keep an eye on the comments and get your questions answered as we go. So, Wales, anything to say before we set off on this part of the journey, Rupert?
It rained.
It did. Not always, but
no.
we got what we were given.
John, it was quite funny that we both have, but I've been to Wales many, many times, always been generally quite lucky with the weather. And Michael was saying, before we drove across the border, Michael was saying, oh, it's just going to rain. And I was saying, I've always had good weather in Wales, and we drove over the Severn Bridge. It just started raining. So I had to eat my words. It did.
All right.
And a good time was had by all.
Well, let's get going with it, shall we? The first place that appears?
The first place that appears?
Yes, here's a guessing game. Your starter for 10, Mr. Solskin. First item up in Wales.
Where did we go first? Did we go to the Pont-y-Pridd rocking stone?
We did indeed. Well done. Your reward is I will press the play button. Here we go.
Wow.
Oh, try that. There we go.
The other button.
Not that one. Try this one.
Our standing stones belong to an age long before British territories were established, and there's something very evocative about crossing a national border that didn't exist in those ancient times. Wales appears to have far fewer megalithic remains than some other parts of Britain, but that may be simply because they're harder to reach, and many of them in inaccessible places are forgotten and unnamed.
I'll tell you something for nothing, that's not the road to Pont-y-Pridd.
But those that have had an enduring place in people's imagination owe much to the richness of Welsh folklore. The Pont-y-Pridd rocking stone has been a meeting place for as long as we know, and it has strong connections with the Welsh bardic tradition. Interestingly though, the stone circle around it was constructed by bards in 1849, and that made me wonder. Very occasionally, we still build stone circles in a kind of homage to our distant ancestors, but with no real knowledge of their original purpose. How do we know that half of the British circles aren't Bronze Age follies built in homage to their Neolithic ancestors with no knowledge of their intent?
It was very rainy then, but I thought that is a point that you just made that we've hung on to really, and it's one always worth bearing in mind with any monument. You know, who's to say that it wasn't an homage to something else that went before? Yeah.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I chuckled though when that shot that you said that's not the road to Pont-y-Pridd.
Yes,
because that's well, actually no, you'll see that later on. But that was a particular morning. It should have been a brief thing. We really thought that the circle that we wanted to film was just the other side of the road and up the hill there. I mean, literally 10 minutes walk, and we thought we'll have that done in half an hour. It was only for a scenic thing. And it just rained, and we couldn't walk across the river that's usually a gentle stream. And how many hours was it?
Oh.
And how many miles was it that we had to walk to get around that stream?
A lot. Yeah. But we're not there yet.
Plans.
Wow.
Best laid plans.
Yeah. Let's carry on.
Tinkins Wood is another example of a Severn Cotswold tomb. And this enormous Neolithic monument is home to the largest capstone in Britain. 30 feet long and weighing around 50 tons. Folklore says that if you fall asleep here, you will wake as a bard, or go mad. Although with some of the bards I've met, I'm not sure it isn't the same thing.
No bards here, are there?
Out in the wilder countryside, the open moorlands echo the barren landscapes of Dartmoor, and everything seems to disappear into the vast openness of it all.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
It was the road to Carrickdown.
Was.
Above the River Tor, if it weren't for the massive standing stone called Main Moor, you could easily miss the circle of Carrickdown. But however unimpressive the circle may be, its position looking down through the valleys is spectacular.
I just wanted to say about that place, Cerrig on the main Morn, is that it is a really, really important site. The only thing that is worth photographing when you're actually there, as you've just seen, is that reasonably tall, lumpish standing stone. But hidden in the grass around it is a stone circle. And how many stone rows? There's two or three stone rows, so all you can see there is the lump sticking it out of the grass. But in actual fact, it's a complex.
And it's crazy that it's another one of those, what were they thinking? Yeah. Because you could, if it was bad weather and the sheep hadn't been grazing, you could walk straight through that and only be aware of that central stone. The other stones are just so tiny and lost in the grass. You can
barely see it from that road.
Yeah. If you don't know it's there, you'd just miss it.
Yeah. And it was raining, and that stream was running a torrent, so we couldn't walk across it. We had to. We could see the stone. Within 100 yards of the road. Thought, oh, that's easy. I think we had to walk about 2 miles with the kit to get round to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cork says she's only a bard with a lower case, so it's fine. And Joan says, nope, just mad folk. Cool. Sibylla says Cerrig sounds like straight out of Tolkien. Well, actually, it's hardly surprising. Tolkien did take a lot of his place names from Welsh or Welsh-sounding places. It's the old English stuff. His scholarship in Old English and Welsh and stuff. It's
do you think that the whole for Tolkien? I don't want to go off on one, but for Tolkien, the whole point of Middle Earth and all of that was that he thought that Britain deserved a mythology that it didn't have.
Yeah.
So he took it upon himself to write it.
Yeah.
He was very inspired by.
And, he rooted it very much in the places that he knew. I think I know exactly where. What?
Michael. Michael, this is a recipe for disaster, lying in bed using a blowtorch to light my cigarette. Look, it's not our fault.
No. I think, where's in The Hobbit, where's the place where Smaug lives? Up in the mountain there, with the village below that he lays waste to from time to time.
Somebody can tell us that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
No, not Mordor. No,
no. That's,
press the play button. We're going to go off on one.
Yeah, I'm going to press the play button. If the name comes to me, I will. I'll let you know. All right, let's get back to it.
This is Gorse Vawr in Pembrokeshire. And it's typical of Welsh stone circles. They're all made
Thank you,
of
Joan.
small
Misty
stones,
Mountain, yes.
Which is really strange.
Lonely Mountain.
Because you see that ridge up there behind me? Well, that's the Preselis, right? Now, I can tell you, from the wonders of GPS technology, that Stonehenge is 135 miles from here. The blue stones at Stonehenge, they came from up there. What were they thinking? It may be another good example of the possible remnants of old oral traditions that Merlin appears in Welsh folklore and is the reputed builder of Stonehenge long before his emergence as a wizard in romantic Arthurian legend. These faint strands could connect to an age far older than we imagine.
I think we do have to take a moment there, having mentioned the Preselis and the bluestones. So it'd be rather remiss to gloss over it a bit. Did you see the size of Rupert's technology there back in 2007?
What, my GPS?
Yeah.
I've still got that GPS.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out very often because what's the point? But yeah, I've still got that GPS.
Okay, Smog's Mountain
waypoints all around the world. Yeah.
Phil says Smog's Mountain was based on the brickworks in Spark Hill.
Well, do you know what? I think I think he's spot on. Actually, if you look at Tolkien's own illustrations, they're just dreadful. Was it Sauron's tower was just a brick tower, and just honestly, visually, thank goodness for the likes of Alan Lee and Peter Jackson who've done what Tolkien couldn't do.
But I've been advised the name of the mountain in The Hobbit was the Lonely Mountain, I do believe. Two people have said that. But the place I'm thinking of that is the inspiration, I should say, for Lonely Mountain is the slate mines above a lake next door to the town of, and I can't remember it, I'll remember it in a while, but if you go up there into the slate mines, they are so spooky. And the scenario just makes you think, oh, I'm on the Lonely Mountain. This is Hobbitland, and below is the town of, forgotten now. Anyway,
you've just reminded me of something else that I'd completely forgotten, and I can't think. Where was it that we were filming?
No, it's not Blenheim-Festiniog.
No, there was somewhere that we were filming where...
No, it's none of those folks.
You just were on a hillside while I was driving backwards and forwards. And we were driving past some really black water with a complete mirror surface.
Oh, that was above the lock. Above the locks up in the Scottish Highlands.
That was in Scotland, was it? Because there was this huge, weird wall, and we were likening that to Mordor.
We'll get to that when we get to Scotland.
I couldn't remember where it was.
It makes it into the film. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need a Lord of the Rings watch party. The place I'm thinking of is in The Hobbit, not in Lord of the Rings. It doesn't make an appearance in Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, anything more to say about bluestones for the moment, except that within the next few weeks we are interviewing Tim Darvo.
We are. We're interviewing him.
We will be grilling him muchly on the origins of the bluestones in the Preselis and his theories about the healing properties of the bluestones and the reasons they were taken to Stonehenge. Shall I move on?
Please.
What was the name of that little stone circle just below? Because there are a number of lesser stone circles around the Preselis there. Gorsvar, that's right. Yeah. And there's a few other. We will go there and make a film there soon, don't you think?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
Dolmens punctuate the landscape in this part of Wales, although here they're usually called cromlechs and are all that remain of much bigger structures. Not far from the Preselis, the tiny Lech Tripeth stands lonely on a hilltop, and its small size makes it difficult to imagine what it may have looked like. But a few miles to the south, Pentre Ifan is so huge that it takes a tall man to reach its enormous capstone. And these stones were covered by a long mound of earth and stones which stretched about 100 feet down the hill behind it.
Oh, we were so lucky that day.
Yeah. Behind the scenes, we were getting the camper got stuck in the on the campground. Do you remember? We had to go and buy some rope to pull it out.
In a village called Ysbyty Cynfyn, not far from Aberystwyth, is an incongruous site illustrating the struggle between ancient belief and Christianity.
I will. Hold on a second. What is it that you wish to say?
I wish to say, if we have any Welsh speakers watching right now, and you know how Ysbyty Cynfyn should be pronounced, could you please type it in a comment in phonetically in a comment, because we asked a local Welsh woman, she didn't know, and it's one of those weirdnesses of the Welsh language that there isn't a vowel in it, it's all Y's, and anyway, that was it really. Just say help. If there's somebody there who knows, do please tell us.
Okay.
This powerful stone circle has been absorbed into the walls of the church graveyard, very much like the church sitting on top of Knowlton Henge in Dorset. The early church clearly recognised the greater impact of using the site for something new rather than destroying it. In contrast, the unspoilt circle of Moltúrchaf sits majestically on a hill looking out across the landscape just as it has for millennia.
I love that.
And sites like this highlight an aspect of these monuments which is often overlooked. They look similar, but this is a circle of stones forming an almost unbroken enclosure, clearly different from a stone circle where the stones are widely spaced and each has a deliberate placing.
Anything you want to say about that, Rupert?
Not really. I just it's another really complicated site. I mean,
according to Rich, Ysbyty Cynfyn is right.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, hey,
thank you, Rich. You filled us with confidence.
Conway Bay sits a site called the Druid Circle.
Ah.
All through Wales, links with the Druids seems to grow stronger, and here, it's not without reason.
What?
Although little is known
I'll wait
about
until this
we
bit
do
is
know that in Celtic tradition, the Druids were already long established by 200 BC. To the rest of society, these revered teachers clearly held a special status, and from the later accounts of Julius Caesar, referring to the Druids in Gaul, we find that they were exempt from all normal taxes and obligations.
Sibylla, thank you very much. But there's a kind of a story behind the fact that we've got those very nice shots. More than a couple of times, we've been asked, have we ever fallen out?
I didn't want to go.
He didn't. Well, certainly halfway there he didn't want to go. It was
I obviously so glad we did in the end, but no, it was. See, what you people don't appreciate is that Michael stands by a camera and he goes, "Okay, can you walk from there to there?" So I'll do that, and he'll say, "Yeah, can you do that again?" And by the end of the day, Michael stood by his tripod a few times, and I've walked 38 miles, and and I was just so tired. I just, and it was, when you saw that was shot at sunset. I didn't want to go. And Mike said, "No, come on, it'll be worth it." And he wasn't leaving it alone. So no.
Well,
right
to be very fair, we were at the very end of quite a long stint. We'd been through Wales. We'd gone across to Ireland. We'd been all around Ireland, come back to Anglesey, shot a bit more in Anglesey, and the Druid Circle there, I think, was the last place on that stint that we were about to do. We were shattered.
We really were.
And Druid Circle is not easy to get to. We didn't have GPS for navigation back in those days in the same kind of way you would do today on your phone. And walking uphill, without a clear idea of where this place was. We were losing the will to live, both of us. And Rupert did get a bit grumpy.
I didn't want to go.
But it was fantastic when we got
there. I didn't want to go.
It was absolutely fantastic when we got there. And glad we got those shots.
I'll just say...
sorry.
No, it's all right. It was just a comment from Michael that saying that he couldn't believe that you'd shot all that on your own. Yeah, Mike's cinematography is absolutely top notch. It's he might not say it. I will.
Okay,
brilliant.
bless you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Cork says, if we're filming number 2, do her a favour and both wear step tracking watches. I want real data for Rupert's mild yeah, that's a fair call.
Okay, you know what will happen though? You do Michael strap it to Leica and get Leica to run up and down a bit. That's
the other thing we have to do is measure the weight we're carrying. Who's carrying the more weight as well. Also, but let's not go there. I'm going to press the button.
When it came to electing a successor for the position of Supreme Druid, if it couldn't be resolved by vote, it was decided by armed force. So much for peaceful mistletoe pickers. The Roman invasion of Britain was ruthless, and as they forged their way north, the opposing Brits, along with the Druids, were forced to retreat ahead of them through Wales. And it was AD 60 that everything came to a head. Rome had to overcome the troublesome Druids if it was going to achieve total control of Britain. It was here on the Isle of Anglesey that the Druids made their last stand against the might of the Roman Empire. And contemporary accounts tell of a people far removed from the peaceful white-robed mystics imagined by Stukely.
The final battle started here at the Menai Strait. The Roman army arrived at the riverbank over there and looked across to a terrifying sight. Tacitus described the enemy as a dense array of armed warriors. He said, women in black with dishevelled hair were dashing between the ranks like furies and waving brands. Druids with their arms in the air yelling curses at the Roman army. He says that the soldiers were paralysed with fear. But nonetheless, the Romans won, and the Druids' mythical status today is the legacy of that once powerful force. And who knows what body of knowledge died with them. One needs to remember that despite our perception of the Druidic links with stone circles and ancient monuments, these sites were built long before we hear anything about the existence of Druids. For example, on Anglesey is the profoundly mystical Bar Clodagh de Gaures, about 5,000 years old. A circular structure which leaves no doubt that it was a significant setting for ritual practices. There are what appear to be burial chambers to the sides, although only one was found to contain human remains. Stones positioned within the tomb bear strange carvings, and strangest of all, archaeologists have found that in the central area, a fire had burned for a long time, into the middle of which had been poured a stew.
A stew containing eel, wrasse, whiting, rabbit, mouse, shrew, snake, frog, and toad. Now, easy as it is for us to associate such a recipe with a Shakespearean witch's brew, actually there is another interesting possibility. These people seem to be fascinated by creatures that live in the margins of the natural world. Creatures that live underground, where man would only place the dead, or in water where man couldn't exist at all, or only coming out at night when the veils between the living and the dead seem to be lifted. In the mind of Neolithic man, could these creatures have seemed to pass between the worlds of the living and the dead? However we interpret this remarkable find, discovering these organic remains has given us a unique glimpse into the ritual lives of our ancestors. Soup?
There's a couple of stories there, aren't there? There's a couple of questions that need answering. Michael asked, does anyone know how big this is compared to Newgrange? It's tiny compared to Newgrange. I think it's fair enough to say that it's not small. It's not. It's a fair-sized mound, but compared to the mass of Newgrange, it's
it would fit in Newgrange's forecourt. If that gives
easy,
you an idea.
and the space inside is pretty tiny. The single burial chamber there. It's fascinating, Barclay. I don't know if it's still the case. I think it is that you have to go to the local grocery shop in the local village to get the key to get in. It's sealed off with a gate with a padlock. What else can I remember about that? I lost my mobile phone there.
So you did.
I did, which was a disaster.
That was a bit of a panic.
Yeah. We'd gotten the other side of the Menai Straits, on a back and doubled back. I don't know. I can't remember how we retrieved it, but somebody had found it.
Somebody found it. Somebody handed it in.
But how did we get in touch with somebody that had found a mobile phone? I don't know. That's lost in the clouds of my memory, I'm afraid.
I don't remember, but wow.
Rich said he's only eat that after about 10 pints.
That's fair. I'm with you on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cork says they were making meat pies. Cork also claimed to be the woman dashing along. Cork also claims to be the woman dashing with, along behind with the druids with fiery brands. Cause being she hadn't had a coffee yet.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Matt, how did you know? It was a Nokia 3210. I think it was something like that. Wow.
Stop it. Yeah.
Yes, let's not do that. But no. Here's the interesting thing. All those moving along in the car shots, they were all shot near your place down in Devon.
The actual the campfire sequence there. We had intended filming that in Wales, and it was just impossible because of. I can't remember why we couldn't. It was just impossible. And
logistics of some sort.
And so, in the end, it was actually the last thing that we shot of all, and it was actually filmed in Devon. That sequence in a patch of wood near a place that I go to a lot.
Yeah. And do you remember all the voiceover work was done in that place in Devon down there?
Yeah, we got a caravan.
It was recorded in a caravan down there.
So that spot where we filmed the campfire, that's near an Iron Age fortified camp, Blackberry camp. We filmed it near there, just because it's a place where. Well, I just knew a patch that would work. But ironically, even though the weather in Wales had been consistently awful, and we'd envisaged it being much easier later on, and so it had been raining for days in Devon as well. And we had a day when it was, it turned out that the day itself was still nice. We got into the woods, and everything was still sopping, which is why those of you that have seen the bloopers know what happened there. And the only wood, the only thing that you can find, if you know your outdoor bits and pieces, that there was enough holly, and holly, you can burn holly whatever the weather, and so I'd just gone off finding holly. There was no ash or anything else, but the thing is that you can light the holly. Except that it burns so quickly that I couldn't keep it alight to make, for us to film the whole sequence. So I ended up using firelighters and nearly set light to myself. 2 men
in the dark with a camera and fire and a can of Heinz chunky meat soup. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, it was all fine.
Until you incinerated yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all on the outtakes.
Yeah,
I shall press the button.
Yeah, go on then.
I'll continue. All right.
This is Prehistory Guys, and it really is one of the most significant sites in Britain. Its history is long and very complex, and there's been a lot of debate over its construction. About 5,000 years ago, it was a henge, complete with ditch and bank, and to emphasise its importance, the central area was crowned by a circle of big stones. Then about 1,000 years later, it was turned into a huge chambered cairn, far bigger than is visible today. The ditch was filled and earth from the bank was used to provide material for the earth mound, and to make the tomb the circle stones were moved and reused or broken and buried in a total destruction of what had been before. Another example of a total change of usage, a place being taken over completely and changed from an open place for the living into an enclosed place for the dead. In a way, it's like the stone circle of Ysbyty Cynfyn being absorbed into the walls of a later Christian graveyard, and it's possibly our best example of the underlying complexity at any site that was used for thousands of years.
Got to be honest with you, I came here yesterday, and I thought that when I got to Anglesey, I'd tell you about the Druids and show you a couple of sites and go. But I found something here that I really can't understand how it's been missed before, and it's genuinely the most exciting thing I've ever discovered, and yesterday it left me stunned for hours. Come and have a look at this. This is the burial chamber, and here stands an impressive pillar of stone. It doesn't touch the ceiling, so it's not structural. It's important in its own right. Now, archaeological texts and writings about this site have described this as a monolith and as a carefully dressed pillar of stone, meaning it was cut to be this shape. But you can't cut these textures. So what could be cylindrical and this rough texture? It's a fossil tree trunk. Look, you can see where the bark has split, revealing the wood grain underneath. All around you can see traces of that. Now, don't switch off when I say what I'm going to say next. Some of these cut marks can only have been made when it was wood, not when it was stone. Look here, the bark has dragged. Stone would have split or shattered. And down here, two distinct marks, blows, where the wood has pulped. And you can't make these marks in stone unless it's something like a mudstone, but in that case you won't get these textures. Now you'll either think I'm crazy or you'll be as stunned as I was yesterday, because as far as I was concerned, the latest fossil wood comes from the Miocene period, which is about 20 million years ago. I sat on the floor, stunned and confused, and then rang a friend of mine who knows about these things, and apparently the latest research from Japan has proved that petrification, so that's turning into stone, can occur much faster than we thought, and it is conceivable that a piece of wood this size could petrify in under a century. But that's in extreme conditions. Now, even if we give it a few thousand years, we still have a wonderful story. We could have a tree trunk that has been worked by man. It falls into a bog with a high acid content and a high silica content, and over that period of time it turns to stone. Now when it was found again, it must have seemed like a thing of absolute magic. To Neolithic man, wood symbolised life and stone symbolised death. So here was a being of life and afterlife, living and dead. Whether it was found by the builders of Bryn Celli or whether it was brought here from elsewhere, already a highly prized item, We may never know. I'm just amazed that nobody has written about this before, and I hope that specialists get here to date it, and soon, because if it is 20 million years old, I don't know what I'll do.
And there endeth the third part of Standing with Stones and our visit to Wales. So there's quite a lot to unpack in that last bit, and I think it bears reiteration. You know, the subsequent investigations about what we saw there and what we thought we saw there.
Well, do you know what? I will stand 100% by our evaluation at the time. I've seen a lot of fossil tree trunks. I was looking at another one, except that it's not. But the fact remains, and I do think it's important. This can't be understated. That every single book, before we said this, every single book that you could buy. In fact, many of them I still have on my bookshelves, saying that the pillar, a carefully dressed pillar of stone. They all talk about a carefully dressed pillar of stone, and that was the first thing that we saw when we walked in there, having seen it for the first time, was that that's not carefully dressed. You could not make that. You would have to be the most brilliant craftsman with a century to spare to carve that. You know, it's just not doable. So that was the first thing, that this was not what the book said it was. Then the fact that it looked like any number of fossil tree trunks that I've seen, and when you looked at the imperfections on it, so where it appears to have been struck, or where it appears that the bark has split, all those features are things that look like wood. So the fact that it turned out to be blue schist, and I'm saying this, one geologist has been there and identified it as blue schist. So I suppose there's always the faintest possibility that if somebody actually was allowed to do a bit of destructive testing and they took a core sample, they could still find out that we were right. But no,
the vast weight of evidence seems to be.
The thing is, it makes complete sense that it's blue schist, not least of all because Anglesey sits on one of the rare fault lines where blue schist actually occurs. Now, blue schist is every bit as rare as fossil tree trunks, actually. So what makes blue schist is it's in subduction zones of tectonic plates. Okay, so one plate goes underneath another. I want to be going that way. So if you've got one plate going underneath another, then the rock is kind of rolled up, like making a stick of rock, you know, a stick of Christmas candy, rolled up. And that's why it comes up as this cylindrical shape. And it happens comparatively quickly at vast pressures but low temperatures. And that's really why you can get this cylindrical form of rock. Now, all that is important here, and it's so important. You know, there are people who still want us to say, no, we're wrong about that. It is actually still a fossil tree trunk. You don't need to go there. The point is that our ancestors, the people who built the tomb, would have seen that as a stone tree. It would have been quite magical to them because that's what it looks like. And that in itself, in the narrative of the history of Bryn Celyn, that's all that matters. Yeah. The people who built it thought that they had this magical stone tree. And we don't need to make it more magical than that. I will say I still get private messages about this to this day. And I got one only last week from somebody saying that petrification like this is a lot more common, and it can actually happen in a few years. And there is a problem when people confuse different aspects of geology. And what can happen very quickly is mineralization, which is not the same as petrification. And there's a place in Yorkshire, pretty sure it's in Yorkshire.
Yeah, it's a spring of some sort where you can take anything. You can take a hat.
There is so much life in the water that you can take anything you like. I mean, people have taken dolls and God knows what, or hats, and just hang them in the water and then go away and come back in. It's not long. I can't think.
And they've turned to stone. Yeah.
Like that. And the thing is, it's coated in stone.
Yeah,
that's it. It's not that every porous cell has actually been filled with mineral.
Mother Shipson's cave.
Well done,
Sue Butler.
Well done, thank you, Sue. Yeah. It's quite a different thing.
Lynn says, sounds like my shower.
In fact, do you know what? Hold on a second. Don't go away. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves. I can't hear you for a moment.
Fair enough.
You know what? I can hear you. I didn't.
Okay, cool. No, I was just going to say that, that day that we were in there and we hadn't filmed anything yet, and you turned to me and just, pointed out the detail on this piece of rock. It was one of those things that once seen, you couldn't unsee it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny, that thing of not seeing something until you shift your view of it and appreciate it as something else.
I'm still mystified, genuinely mystified, that all the books still describe it as a carefully dressed pillar of stone, because I don't see how you can look at that and true, but I don't see how you can look at that and see that unless you're just being careless. Anyway, look, the reason I wanted to show you this, I found this in a quarry in Oxfordshire, actually, and it's not mirrored; it's the wrong way around. So
I'll give you full screen. There you go.
Ooh, okay, it's a fossil piece of tree. Right, but the thing is that this is this halfway house between fossilization and mineralization, because in the middle, that is still hollow, where for whatever reason the conditions didn't swamp it completely, and inside this there is still wood. So there's this outer case that is just absolutely. I'm not actually sure. It's not limestone. It looks like a mixture of mudstone and sandstone. But the thing is that in the middle is still some wood, and that's probably, I don't know, 180 million years old, something like that.
Oh, crazy!
Just this halfway house of still half alive. Amazing.
We're getting requests now for a drum solo, Rupert.
Yeah, mate. That would be a laugh. At the moment, it is only hearable through headphones. I'm getting separate speakers to plug it into. The joys of electric kids.
Yeah, it was no easy thing deciding what to do once we'd seen that as a piece of petrified wood, though. So much so that, although Rupert says in the film, I came here yesterday, actually that's a fib.
It was a filming fib, but it was true as far as...
thought process is concerned. But we'd been off to Ireland, done all the Ireland filming on that loop and come back to Anglesey. And we wrote, or you wrote the... what you were going to say in there while we were in Ireland.
I did.
Driving around. There's a photograph of you actually doing it, I think, or of me reading what you wrote, I think.
It was genuinely a. When I say upsetting, you know what I mean. It's not. I was upset. Yeah. It was just a complete.
Sideswipe to what you thought you were going to do. Yeah.
I thank you for a polite version of what was going through my head. Yes, because as we've said before, there were a number of occasions where script was in place, and we would arrive somewhere to do a recce with full plan of how the words were going to be, and then we'd look at the site and say, well, that's just not right. What we've read in the books is just somebody's not thinking clearly, and this was the worst possible example of that it didn't matter what you thought about the site as a whole, that there was this one screaming feature that, however right or wrong we were, every book that had ever been written before was very wrong. And that was the upset, because here are we, two kind of upstart antiquarian filmmakers who are telling all the top archaeologists who've ever written about the site that they didn't know what they were talking about.
We must get Seren Griffiths on again, It's a long time since we spoke to her. Seren
I have emailed her.
Yeah. Seren's one of the lead archaeologists on the current excavations that are going on at Brinkethly and have been for a few years. I don't know if COVID did affect the dig last year, but
we would have been filming there with her last year if COVID hadn't happened.
Brinkethly is hugely important. I mean, completely aside from whatever that stone is in the middle. Because of its longevity of use, and also because of the stuff that's being found round about it. It is a complex. It's another place that turns out to be far more complicated than just the mound in the middle. Did Michael hit his head getting in there? Cork asks. I don't recall hitting my head getting in there. I recall hitting my head following you under Tinkins Wood, under that capstone at Tinkins Wood earlier at the Barrow. Definitely did that. In fact, I did it again when I went back there to make that little short about Tinkins Wood. Yeah, I don't there is no writing. There is no ogham on that fossil, if that's what you mean. The marks on the
no, there
stone.
No. Do you know what? One of the things that you always have to leave in your head as possibilities when you look at the phases of Brinkethly, and you think that the first phase that we know about was a circle henge. So it was a henge with a stone circle on the central plateau. And then it was turned into this large burial mound. Now, whilst we don't know, obviously, because it's prehistoric, how would we know? So we can't say what was going on in terms of the thought processes of the builders of each stage. But it is just as possible that the people who came around
I'm still here, but Rupert seems to have disappeared. I think that was a hard cut-off. Oh, no, you're back. You disappeared.
Did I? I'm on 4G. What happened? Where did you lose
completely. Me? We've lost about 30 seconds of you.
Oh, heavens above. Wow,
yeah.
I wonder what happened there. What I was saying was, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself because I don't know, but originally the first stage of Brinkethly was a henge with a stone circle on the central plateau, and then along came whoever, and they turned it into a massive burial mound. And I'm just saying that there is a correlation that when you look at a stone circle, that along comes the Christian church, and Christianity puts a church in the middle and a cemetery around it and what have you, that, that it could be that this, an incoming culture just wants to eradicate all face of the previous culture. Mm. It's quite possible that we're just seeing history repeating itself. Yeah. Somebody asked earlier about the size comparison of Barcladia to Newgrange, but the relationship
I don't think is made so much between Baclodiad and Newgrange as Brinkethly Thee is certainly compared. Although it's no bigger than Baclodiad, but there seems to be correlations, far more correlations between Brinkethly Thee and Newgrange, and further up north there and over to the east to Maes Howe. So in my mind now, Maes Howe, Brinkethly Thee and Newgrange sort of belong in a kind of bond of three there. Yeah. And none of them as grand as Newgrange, but the influences seem to be there.
What's the name of the site on Uist that we didn't manage to get to? That's very similar in structure. It would be the same as Maes Howe.
No, sorry. No, got me there. Yeah.
Don't remember. But yes, there are a few that are the same sort of beast.
People are making serious inquiries about my beard. Yes, you know what? I'm going for it, folks. I haven't lost my flints. Who said that? Lynn said Michael ran out of flints or he's growing a beard. No, I don't know. Do you know what started it? Do you know when we came back from the very last stint of filming Standing with Stones, going up to Scotland and back, I was looking a bit like Shackleton. And thought, that's a good look. Maybe I can repeat that for the second instalment of Standing with Stones.
Actually, I took a photograph of you. I took a photograph of you on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
When it was... maybe it wasn't. You were wearing your red puffer jacket there, your orange puffer jacket.
It was round about... I don't know. There's one of me on the ferry, actually, looking a bit shabby.
Yeah, no, there was another one. I can't remember where I took there's another photograph I took of you somewhere, looking very much like Shackleton. You were quite noble, actually.
Oh, I know what it's Old Keeg. There's a photograph of me leaning against Old Keeg, looking like an old actor laddie.
Maybe it was there.
Yeah. At one of the recumbents up there. Anyway, I think reiteration is a good thing.
Well done, Barbara Langus. Yeah. I think you're right.
Oh, goodness. Excellent job. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, well done, Martin. Yeah.
Rose Bruford style, man. Oh, my God.
Dear.
Anyway, look, listen, I think we have... we've reiterated this stuff, and I think it always bears reiteration, so that people that don't know now know that it is definitely blue schist.
But say again, the important thing is that it looks like a fossil tree trunk, and that's what the builders would have thought that it was. That's all that matters.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been I really enjoy these watch parties.
They're good fun, actually. It's like looking at holiday photographs.
Yeah.
I have to say that shot of up at the Druid Circle with that stunning sunset. And for those of you that get the impression that I'm a prima donna who has a hissy fit, I'm not. I didn't want to go. And when we said we were going to go, that was the last complaint that was ever made. And but the thing is that there were so many instances throughout the whole process of making this film that Mike and I would just turn to each other and say, we're working. It was the sheer magic of, we did work like dogs, but the thing was, we were working like dogs. There's work the verb and work the noun. And we were working, but it wasn't work. We were just having such a good time. And that was a perfect example. The sunset there at the Druid Circle. Oh, my goodness. Things like that make you feel alive.
And yes, that was the point of making that shot. So somebody said it looks like a cloaked man. That was it. That was the point. So that was the point. Yeah, caught in silhouette against the sun like that. As we were just about to talk about.
That's why I put my arm around its shoulder. Because it was like me talking to a bloke in a cloak. Yeah.
That was the idea. So. Sibylla says, well, these watch parties are excellent. So glad
Thank
you're
you,
enjoying them. More lively than most chat sessions. That's fair enough, actually. But what are we going to do after part 7?
Well, the thing is, after part 7, we've got the bloopers. Because my motto in life, I only said this earlier on to Harry Robson when we were interviewing him, my motto in life is never be afraid to make an ass of yourself. It's very liberating if you don't mind looking an ass. So we can do a watch party on the bloopers. We can do a watch party on the unseen footage, because the unseen footage, actually, there's a lot of stuff in there that we could have conversation about.
Yeah, and it's very unseen. Not so many people have seen that bit. It was an extra for. It was an extra for the DVD. It is on YouTube somewhere, but I don't think it's advertised much.
But then, if you're interested, sorry, I feel an idiot saying this, really, but if you're interested in talking, in us talking, or you asking us questions about any of the films that we've made, we can do a watch party about any of the other.
Shorts
that we've made, because if you do have questions, it's probably a better way of discussing it.
Yeah. But we've got Devil's Quoits.
Yeah,
and we've got Rollright Stones.
Rollright Stones, Dominance of the Languedoc.
And something else, maybe Arthur Stone. I don't know.
And the interview too, David, mate. You're a glutton for punishment.
That would be, yeah. But anyway, they're short films, but there's enough meat in them and background to them to make for fascinating watch parties. Even if you've got suggestions for anything extracurricular that we could, go through as a watch party, then that would be cool too. Oh, Joan, you're an absolute flipping superstar for the races. What are we going to do now? You've backed me into a corner now. You have to shave my beard off.
No, that's for your head. That's all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All goes to a good cause.
Thank you.
As you
that's
know.
really kind.
Cherry Smith, there's an interview, that we made back in 2008. It's a 3-part interview with us, looking very young. I was looking very beardy. I had the hair, I had the beard. You'll get the...
You did. Yeah. I had more teeth.
Yep. And we did have but it would be that would be just weird, doing a watch party of us being interviewed.
To be honest, I'm not sure that I could handle it.
No, just watch the interview. That's enough. Yeah, it would just be embarrassing, because we'd be saying something in the interview that we'd forgotten about. Oh,
yeah.
Really? Did we do that? It was still fresh in our minds then, you understand. Okay, so next time it's the whole of Ireland, isn't it? Well, I say the whole of Ireland. Yes, all of the filming we did in Ireland.
Yeah.
So there'll be quite a bit to talk about there.
Well, we've got loads to talk about that actually wasn't in the film when it comes to Ireland.
That is true. That is very true, actually. It'll be off-piste talk, won't it?
Yeah, very much so. Some of that was really funny.
All right, folks, thank you so much for helping to make this a fun evening. It's very refreshing at the end of the day, and we'll look forward. It will be next Thursday. There isn't anything intervening, is there? Will we have been? Will be exhausted from having done another interview next Thursday afternoon?
No, we're not doing one Thursday.
Gone again. Oh no, you haven't.
And then we're interviewing Sue Greeny the week after that.
Yeah.
So no, next week we're good.
Okay, cool. But we are we not live on Tuesday with a Q&A?
We've got the YouTube Q&A on this coming Tuesday.
Oh, brilliant.
Well, actually, we've got an impromptu live tomorrow night.
Yes, we have.
With Hugh Newman, who runs Megalithomania.
Yeah.
Because some of you will know, we were scheduled to be, we still are, we were scheduled to be going to Wiltshire to be giving a talk at Megalithomania last year, and then it was put to this year, hoping that we'd be able to do it. But because it hasn't happened again because of COVID, it's now an online conference, and we're still talking about stuff. It's the 8th and 9th of May. It is. But Hugh's coming on to do just a short live broadcast with us tomorrow, to promote that. Yeah, so that's going to be 8 o'clock UK time. If you're interested, folks. That's tomorrow night. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we will say thank you so much for your input, and so glad you seem to have enjoyed it. With that, we'll say till the next time. See you then,
See you next time, folks. Yeah, bye.
If I can find where my mouse was, I'll press the finish button. Night.